Rorschach Origins Explored. This video will explain what prompted Walter Joseph Kovacs to accept his masked identity as Rorschach as his only true recognition and abandon his unmasked personality as a regular citizen. What persuaded Rorschach to devote his life to the sole goal of fighting the wicked. Even after holding bitter feelings of resentment towards females from early childhood, crimes against women have seemed to leave major impacts on him, which we will learn more about as we move forward. We will further explore how Rorschach lost his life in protecting the disclosure of a horrendous secret capable of pushing the world to the edge of global obliteration. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Rorschach, aka Walter Kovacs Origin Explored. Rorschach, aka Walter Joseph Kovacs, was born to Sylvia Kovacs. During Sylvia's pregnancy, although she was persuaded by everybody to abort the child as her husband had left her, she decided to give birth. To sustain herself along with Rorschach, Sylvia got involved in the gloomy field of prostitution. But gradually, Rorschach started having some serious issues with his mother's occupation. Once, at the tender age of around 10 years, he interrupted his mother when she was with one of her clients as Rorschach was worried that the stranger was hurting her. The client got vexed at the intervention and left paying extremely less, contrary to what Sylvia had hoped. Although Rorschach barged into the room out of sheer concern for his mother's safety, Sylvia got very angry at being paid lesser because of her son's interference. She started yelling at him by calling him names. Frustrated, Sylvia shuddered, expressing her regret for not aborting him when everyone advised her to do so, and started beating her son mercilessly. After this incident, one day when Rorschach went to the local market to get some groceries, two guys insulted him by using derogatory terms to describe his mother's character. They hit him with fruit on the face and continued their mockery. A humiliated Rorschach retaliated by seizing one of the bully's cigarettes from his mouth and inserting it into one of his eyes. After damaging his eyes partially, an enraged Rorschach knocked the other guy down as well. The nearby crowd rushed to stop the horrific commotion. When they inspected Rorschach about his violent behavior, his silence on the matter was misunderstood by all. Owing to such aggression, the crowd further examined Rorschach's lifestyle and discovered his pathetic condition at home. Uncovering a sad reality of being brutally assaulted regularly and his exposure to the darkest sides of his mother's prostitute livelihood, they were in utter disgust. In response, Rorschach was sent to the Lillian Charlton Home for Problem Children under the state's care in New Jersey. At the age of 16, when he was a high school student, Rorschach was informed of his mother's dreadful murder. Owing to an absolute hatred towards his mother, Rorschach was barely affected. Instead of mourning his mother's death, he responded by saying good.
Maybe I can give you an autograph, huh? What you say, big boy?
Rorschach's story before joining Watchmen. Walter Joseph Kovacs became Rorschach. After Kovacs left the Charlton home, he started living in low-rent apartments. He initially began working as an inexperienced manual worker in the garment sector. Since Rorschach had to deal with female clothing as part of his work, he found his job uncomfortable owing to his relationship with his mother in the past. In 1962, Dr. Manhattan created a new fabric to which Rorschach was introduced when a young Italian girl named Kitty Genovese placed an order for a dress in it. Rorschach made the new fabric by mixing two thick layers of liquid having viscid consistency under the exposure of heat and pressure and finally resulting in a gray shade. Once the dress was ready, the customer refused to purchase it, claiming that she was not happy with how the dress had turned out. As it was rejected, Kovacs took the dress back home and started experimenting with its fabric. Later, he kept it inside his trunk and eventually forgot about the dress upon losing interest in it. After a span of 2 years in 1964, Rorschach was shocked when he came across a piece of terrible news about that same Italian customer whose dress was still in his possession. The newspaper read about the awful rape incident of the customer who was tortured outside her apartment. Rorschach was deeply ashamed of the deterioration of humanity because her neighbors offered no assistance and simply watched her being physically abused. After reading the news, Rorschach stitched the leftovers of the customer's disapproved dress into a mask and made it his iconic identity. He decided to become a costume adventurer under the alias Rorschach, inspired by Herman Rorschach, and he initiated his journey as a costumed adventurer by fighting against criminals at night while pursuing his job in the factory in the daytime. Rorschach referred to the well-known ink blot test developed by Swiss psychologist Herman Rorschach, in which the observer's interpretation of ink blots was analyzed using intricate algorithms. To determine an individual's character trait or to detect mental illness, a sequence of 10 ink blot pictures was displayed to the observer, who was instructed to interpret what he could figure out in each of the pictures. The projective test revealed the hidden internal dispute of the participant. The odd yet a crucial team-up of Rorschach and Night Owl. After a year, Rorschach met with another costume fighter named Night Owl. He connected with Night Owl's energy after sensing a kindred spirit in the vigilante, and thus extended a hand of friendship to him. They quickly joined forces in the fight against immoral behavior. Night Owl designed a multifunctional gadget called the grappling hook gun and gifted it to Rorschach for use as a weapon in his fights. Rorschach used the gun's highly resistant rope to climb several heights. He also used it to grab objects and even his enemies at times. Night Owl also built the owl ship that bore a resemblance to the head of a gigantic owl. Built for the purpose of easy transportation, the ship was equipped with a vast collection of weapons like water cannons, missiles, and many more. It hosted several defense mechanisms like exerting high-frequency noises and the ability to construct smog from pollutants. Night Owl and Rorschach used the ship to submerge underwater and even fly depending on the requirement of their missions. They won against numerous prominent criminals like Underboss and Big Figure after teaming up together. The impact of the kidnapping of a 6-year-old on Rorschach. In 1975, an unemployed man by the name of Gerald Anthony Grice kidnapped a 6-year-old girl named Blair Roche with the motive of fetching a massive ransom from her family. The girl's father was a poor bus driver in reality, but Grice mistook her to be the daughter of a financially affluent family. He conducted the abduction, assuming her to be associated with the Roche chemical fortune. When Rorschach came to learn about the matter, he consoled the emotionally wrecked family. After assuring them to find their daughter and deliver her home safely, Rorschach immediately commenced on the mission to trace her. Following a lot of investigations and assaults, which resulted in the hospitalization of many people, Rorschach located Grice's hideout at Modern Modes. The hideout of the captor turned out to be an abandoned shop of a tailor situated in Brooklyn. When Rorschach reached the house, he noticed 2 dogs of the German Shepherd breed competing over a large bone. As he continued to search Blair in the house, Rorschach discovered a torn piece of the abducted girl's dress in a nearby furnace, along with numerous sharp objects, including knives and a hacksaw. As Rorschach observed the furnace to have been recently used, he instantly figured out what had happened. Rorschach correctly assessed the large bone that the dogs were fighting over to be the femur bone of Blair. On realizing that Grice had fed the girl's remains to the dogs after torturing her to ashes in the burning stove, Rorschach's blood boiled with anger. And at that very moment, he decided to continue his life solely living the identity of Rorschach and never compromising to act against any criminal offense. Infuriated, he killed the 2 innocent dogs outside using the abductor's meat cleaver and waited for Grice to return. When Grice got back to his hiding place late at night after drinking, he was attacked by Rorschach. By throwing the dead bodies of his dogs over him, Rorschach rendered Grice helpless by knocking him down. Despite Grice shouting at him for having no proof of killing the child, Rorschach tied the kidnapper to a pipe in handcuffs. After filling the room with kerosene, Rorschach set it on fire and ensured Grice's death while patiently waiting outside the burning shop. The Keene Act. When the Keene Act was approved by the authorities in 1977, the masked vigilantes were debarred from dispatching criminals. Cooperating with the government's decision, every costume adventurer resigned except Rorschach. He blatantly refused to give up his vigilante status and continue combating crime. In fact, Rorschach dropped the dead body of the wicked rapist named Harvey Charles Furness outside the police station in bold opposition to the act. Later, when the landlady of the slum where Rorschach lived found out his true identity, she falsely accused Rorschach of making sexual advances toward her and tried to harm his reputation. The marvelous story arc of Rorschach, the mass killer conspiracy. In the Watchmen series, when the news of an abrupt murder of a man named Edward Blake in 1985 reached Rorschach's ears, he used his hook gun to climb the victim's apartment and started his own investigation. He unveiled Edward Blake's identity to be his former vigilante mate, the comedian. As Rorschach continued his inspection, he misunderstood the murder to be a part of a conspiracy of eliminating all the existent masked vigilantes. Hence, he set forth warning his former fellow mates about the same. At first, Rorschach approached his former partner, the Night Owl, and narrated the conspiracy theory to him. But in reaction, Night Owl put forward his opinion of the murder to be some normal burglary. Later, as he recalled his days of the past as a masked crime fighter and pondered why things were not the same anymore, he was scolded by Rorschach for being a quitter. Even though nobody paid heed to Rorschach's assumptions, the sudden disappearance of Dr. Manhattan and the murder attempt of Adrian Veidt, aka Ozymandias, boosted his belief furthermore. But soon enough, Rorschach was held captive under the murder charges of Edgar Jacobi, aka the master criminal Moloch the Mystique. Rorschach officially fought the police officers who were armed with a sizable arsenal of weapons with the intelligent use of his common household items. However, Rorschach eventually passed out and was taken into custody. Rorschach experienced multiple threats to his life while he was incarcerated. A gangster called the Big Figure, who was once captured by Rorschach and his former partner Night Owl, broke into Rorschach's prison to seek vengeance on him. Big Figure instigated a prison riot after burning another prisoner in the company of 2 of his minions and successfully located Rorschach's cell amidst the chaos. Upon witnessing Rorschach effortlessly killing his 2 men, Big Figure rushed and hid in a nearby cell bathroom, but Rorschach found him in no time and drowned him in the bathroom. Rorschach's fellow mates, Night Owl and Silk Spectre, took advantage of the riot inside the prison and managed to free him. The trio teamed up and started evaluating the hidden motives behind the assassination of the former crime fighters. Eventually, they discovered the main culprit to be Adrian Veidt, who was considered to be the smartest person in the world. Even though the group made it to Veidt's residence in Antarctica, they were too late to prevent the execution of his master plan. Veidt unleashed a colossal squid creature, killing 3 million New Yorkers. Veidt convinced the traumatized crowd that they were victims of an alien invasion, and he encouraged them to unite. His plan surprisingly worked out, as it led to the unification of the enemy nations, keeping aside their political atrocity in order to fight the deadly monster. But when Veidt confessed to Dr. Manhattan, who had just returned, and the other heroes that he was responsible for the massacre, everyone was disgusted. The scenario was such that if the truth got exposed, it would instigate the furious crowd into a nuclear war in retaliation. So, in view of the outrageous consequence of its revelation, the heroes struggled to try to keep it a secret. But Rorschach, being a man of high morale, was extremely stubborn in revealing the truth to everyone. Unable to agree with Ozymandias' ideology, Rorschach took the ultimate decision of his life. After removing his mask, Rorschach instructed Dr. Manhattan to kill him with a heavy heart, unable to support Ozymandias' bloodshed for the greater good. And with a lot of hesitation, Dr. Manhattan finally disintegrated Rorschach. Rorschach's journal. Preceding the mission to confront Adrian Veidt and leaving for Antarctica, Rorschach had written a journal disclosing the giant squid attack to be a man-made genocide actuated by Veidt. He had sent it to the New Frontiersman newspaper owned by Pioneer Publishing, and later when the journal exposed Veidt's misdeeds after getting published, it accelerated the world into a state of further disarray. In view of the growing hatred against him, Veidt was left with no option but to go into hiding. After reading the journal, Reginald Long, aka Reggie, mistook his father to have been good friends with Rorschach after misinterpreting Rorschach's reports on his father. Hence, Reggie carried on Kovac's legacy as the new Rorschach after losing both his parents in the Ozymandias' squid attack. He was the son of the Dr. Malcolm Long, who attended Rorschach in prison. Rorschach appearances in Watchmen 2009 movie. Rorschach appeared in the Watchmen movie depicted by Jackie Earle Haley alongside the director's son, who portrayed the character's younger self in the flashback scenes. Although the comic book's adaptation into the movie format had no major changes, there were a few modifications in the storyline. Rorschach was shown to be more emotionally sensible in the film as compared to his comic book version. In contrast to the comics, Rorschach's style of killing Blair Roach's kidnapper Grice differed in the movie. Rorschach killed Grice with a meat cleaver that he used to kill his captive named Blair. Rorschach's incident with her landlady was totally omitted. Similar to the comic's narrative, Rorschach played an instrumental role in the investigation of Adrian Veidt, aka Ozymandias' plan to stop a forthcoming nuclear war by killing millions of people. One considerable alteration of the storyline was Night Owl's presence at Rorschach's death, and his anger at Ozymandias for being responsible for Rorschach's death. Night Owl was shown attacking Veidt for deforming mankind and supporting his dead friend Rorschach's point of view. The director of the movie, Zack Snyder, justified this drastic change by expressing his desire to highlight the friendship between Rorschach and Night Owl that was established throughout the movie.
I said don't look at me.
What the hell's going on over there?
Sit tight.
Rorschach appearances in Watchmen 2019 TV series. In the television series Watchmen, Rorschach's journal was discovered after his sudden bizarre disappearance. Due to the bad reputation of the newspaper owing to its previous conspiracy theories, Rorschach's journal was not given much attention initially, but afterward, a white supremacist organization called the 7th Cavalry drew inspiration from the journal and misinterpreted it. Rorschach had the peculiar perception of moral ideals to be clear and definite. Rorschach's rigidness in accepting the existence of gray morality was portrayed in a strict belief in moral absolutism. After adopting Rorschach's mask as the identity of their group, the 7th Cavalry started attacking and executing police officers as President Charles Robert Redford Jr.'s administration hid Veidt's truth from the public. The 7th Cavalry also worked to reinforce mass crime fighters in protest of the Keene Act, which banned costume adventurers. The 7th Cavalry twisted Rorschach's thesis into their own racist theory. They kept torturing the African Americans in Tulsa and engaging in conflicts with Tulsa's police unit, who showed empathy towards them. The terrorist group's ultimate goal was to absorb the powers of Dr. Manhattan for themselves and their master racist organization Cyclops, operated by Senator Joseph Keene Jr., to establish their rule in America. Alternate versions of Rorschach. Kingdom Come miniseries published by DC Comics. In the second issue of DC's comic book series Kingdom Come, written by Mark Waid and Alex Ross in 1996, a small glimpse of Rorschach could be caught. In this version, Superman was shown to return from a voluntary exile to confront a new set of heroes who inflicted distress and suffering in the name of welfare. Upon return, he went to a bar with dim lighting, shabby decor, and an unexotic ambience. Amidst the unruly youth of the bar crowd, Rorschach was seen making his cameo appearance standing between the Question and Obsidian. He played the minor role of breaking Brother Power's fingers. The Countdown to Final Crisis, Arena miniseries by DC Comics. Rorschach was seen in the promotional artwork for the DC comic book series Countdown to Final Crisis, majorly written by Paul Dini alongside a few other writers. In The Dark Knight Returns, Rorschach was smacked by Batman. However, Rorschach, along with the Batman from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, were not included as a part of the series. They were completely excluded from the Countdown to Final Crisis' storyline. What made Rorschach so powerful? Rorschach was a regular human being, but his exceptional willpower and great physical strength were features that distinguished him from others. His judicious utilization of common household materials into dangerous weaponry during times of conflict proved his high intelligence. The instances of spilling pepper to temporarily blind a police officer and igniting fire to hairspray in order to use it for the purpose of burning another officer were some of Rorschach's strategic moves. Apart from being a skilled boxer, gymnast, and undaunted street fighter, Rorschach was also adept at the art of lockpicking. His extraordinary detective skills combined with efficient spying ability facilitated him to solve any mysteries like Adrian Veidt's master plan and the murdered Edward Blake's true identity of being the vigilante, the comedian. Rorschach's strong sense of dedication and daring nature to accomplish his tasks in the process of eradicating crime made him immensely powerful. Marvelous verdict. Walter Joseph Kovacs alias Rorschach mirrored his dichotomous thinking in terms of polar opposites. Rorschach's viewpoint of right and wrong to be clear-cut with no shades of gray at times distorted the truth. Rorschach's defensive behavior on the comedian's attempts at sexually assaulting Silk Spectre to be just a minor moral lapse represented the maniacal side of his thought process. But the fact that Rorschach stood up against Ozymandias for gambling with countless numbers of lives demonstrated his loyalty to the virtue of sticking to justice. In view of Dr. Manhattan's majestic powers, it is quite possible to resurrect Rorschach and see him appear in DC's future storylines. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
October 12th, 1985. Tonight, a comedian died in New York.